You are experiencing the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast.
It is April 9th, 2025, and welcome to the Knuckleheads of Liberty, where we're bringing you the people and the organizations fighting for liberty around the country and in your region. Today, we have a special show for you. It is tax season, in case you were unaware, and we have Mark Hinkle with us, who is the president of the Silicon Valley Taxpayers Association. He is also a former Libertarian Party national chair, so he's got a lot of perspective on the libertarian issues and the Libertarian Party, and we'll probably touch on some of that too as we go through the show. But before we get into anything else, let me introduce you to the rest of our panel. In our upper left-hand corner, we have our screaming eagle of freedom, Tim Everett. He is a pilot in the state of California. In our upper right-hand corner, we have Leon, the word Brathwaite, last word in liberty. He is a retired engineer in the state of California. In our lower left-hand corner, we have Mark Hinkle, our guest today, and my name is Jason McPhee. I'll be your host. So we're going to talk both about the, some of these issues about taxes and some other things coming up. But I also wanted to tell you some of the things we're going to get into the later half of the show. We're going to talk a little bit about grading Trump, because this has been kind of a whirlwind of activity like we've never seen before with the president. And it's kind of a mixed bag. So it'd be interested to hear what each of you guys have to say about him. And then we're also going to talk a little bit about progressive fines, which is kind of an interesting topic that's coming up here in California. But before we do any of that, let's talk about our quote of the day, and it's related to tax season. So Leon, could you bring up our visual here? So our quote of the day this time is from Winston Churchill, who was the Prime Minister of England during World War II. And what he said here, I think, is super appropriate for tax season. He says, "I contend that for a nation to try to tax itself into prosperity is like a man standing in a bucket and trying to lift himself up by the handle." It seems pretty true to me. I mean, you always see, especially here in California, seems like they can't get enough of taxes, and they really think we're going to tax ourselves into prosperity. What do you guys think about this quote? I think he's kind of spot on.
Mark, why don't you go ahead, please?
It's an old quote, and it's a goodie. It's Winston Churchill, so we're talking World War II era thought, and truer words were never spoken.
Indeed.
Yeah, truer words. That's true. I agree. And I agree with the concept. I didn't know if they were talking about tariffs here or talking about, you say in California, they never turned down a tax. California never turned down a tax. Love taxes. Love to be taxed. But I don't think it's thinking that they're going to make themselves prosperous from it. I think they just like the nanny state just buying stuff for them. And they think, I don't make that much money. The majority. And so I'll vote for these taxes. I think they're just trying to make themselves personally a little richer than they normally would be on the backs of the rest of the electorate, or
Tim, it's funny. You brought up the subject of tariffs, and I will guarantee you that if California thought they could get away with doing tariffs, they would.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a tax they wouldn't.
Yeah, I think you're right. How come they don't want to? I don't know. Anyway, there we are.
They cannot do that constitutionally. They can't do that. California by itself cannot. But they, even though they have tried, California and other states have tried to introduce tariffs that is going to work between the states. That's unconstitutional. But anyway, another British. Go ahead.
I got a quick question, Leon. What about tariffs with outside the state of California and outside of the United States, not to state, but between California and, for example, China? But can they do that?
No, the federal government has sole authority over foreign policy and foreign transactions of the United States.
Vis-a-vis the Constitution?
Yes. There is no way California could say we have a treaty with Italy or Great Britain, and that does not apply to the rest of the other states in the union. That cannot happen.
Oh, okay. All right.
Even though I heard Newsom trying to talk some nonsense of trying to do it, well, he's just talking off of the wrong side of his body. The side on the lower part. That's what I'm talking about. I'm getting back to this quote, but there was another British Prime Minister who came years after Winston Churchill. She said, that's Margaret Thatcher I'm speaking about. She said that socialism does not work because we always run out of other people's money. And this is the very same concept that is being articulated here. You cannot tax yourself into prosperity because no matter how much tax you could extract from the people, it's other people's money. You're going to run out of it. And then what do? And this is why socialism have always failed. This is why all these grand government schemes have always failed. So Winston Churchill is absolutely right. We will never be able to tax ourselves to prosperity because at the end of the day, we're going to run out of other people's money. It always happens.
Well, I think that's a good segue to jump into our interview with Mark here and the fact that he is the president of the Silicon Valley Taxpayers Association. So I'm going to bring up that page real quick here just so people can go find it after the interview, but it is svtaxpayers.org. So that is the website, and you can go find out more information about the things that they are working on or working against, because it's usually working against taxes. So tell us a little bit about what your organization does, Mark, over there, and what are some of the things you guys have been working on?
Well, again, thank you very much for the opportunity to do so. The Silicon Valley Taxpayers Association, I've been president for about 10 years. The organization, I think, is about 30 to 35 years old, so we've been around for a good long time. And as you mentioned, our primary goal is to root out tax increases and oppose them. And that primarily means school board bond measures and parcel taxes, but we also go after TOT, transit occupancy taxes, sales taxes, open space taxes, pretty much any tax that exists in Santa Clara and to some extent San Mateo, Santa Cruz, and San Benito County. And so our goal is to basically be the voice of opposition to the establishment, perpetually always coming for virtually every election with another tax increase. And one that happens to be featured on our webpage right now, I'd like to bring up a couple of things. Measure A in Santa Clara County is the parcel tax for the San Jose Unified School District, one of the larger school districts in Santa Clara County. $72 parcel tax, not a big tax, but this was on top of a $1.15 billion bond measure passed in the November election. And this ballot is going to be on May 5th. I think it's May 5th is the Tuesday. And one thing that I find kind of interesting, and I didn't realize this until a couple of years ago, when a school district puts a measure on the ballot, they have to pay for the election. So your taxpayers' dollars are actually going to bring you a tax increase, which to me seems a little sketchy. Yeah. And it gets worse because the only measure that is on the ballot is Measure A. That means the entire cost of the election has to be borne by the taxpayers in San Jose Unified School District. Had they waited for the primary or the general election, they could have bundled the total cost and parceled it out so not everybody would pay the total cost. And from a strategic standpoint, they're actually doing something smart from their perspective because guess what? The turnout in special elections is very, very low. So they can marshal their resources, get it passed. And of course, 100% of the parcel owners in the district have to pay for the tax. How many actually vote for it? 10%, 15%. That's pretty egregious in my book. Now, again, delving into this particular measure, I hope this doesn't bore people, but this particular measure is a tax, a parcel tax. And one of the things that I find egregious about it is not only has the San Jose Mercury News endorsed a no vote, which they virtually never do, the county grand jury raked them over the coals for the dysfunction of the school district. So we have a golden opportunity here where basically all the stars are aligned in the opposition. Now, for some reason, taxpayers, if you put a tax next to the word education, they genuflex and pass it virtually all the time.
Mhm.
I'm hoping with the San Jose Mercury News, the grand jury report, and opposition from taxpayers that we can actually defeat this measure. One thing I will point out, and hopefully everybody is painfully aware of this, here in California, because of COVID-19, attendance by students in the government school system is down a lot. And in fact, between 2019 and today in San Jose Unified School District, over 4,000 students left the district.
Wow.
4,000
Wow.
students, yes.
That's a real
And
condemnation of the quality of what it is that the government's putting out.
Yes.
Yeah, because they didn't just disappear and were exported to slave camps in Iraq. They're in charter schools or in private schools or homeschooling.
Homeschooling, yeah.
So
You sure they're not in Guatemala in a prison somewhere?
You mean El Salvador, right?
El Salvador, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a lot of flames.
And Tim, they had no due process either, right? El Salvador.
Yeah, apparently.
Well, Christine Nome was down there, and she said you probably should ask her.
Yeah. Yeah, they didn't want to show a picture of her in front of that cell with all the kids behind.
Damn.
So here's another tidbit that you should be aware of. I happen to live in Morgan Hill, which is just south of San Jose, and I'm in the Morgan Hill Unified School District. There is a website, and I invite everybody to go take a look, called ed-data.org. It's a junction between a couple of nonprofits and the California Department of Education. So the stats there are all vetted by the California government. So by and large, you probably cannot negate the facts there. It's not like just rumor mill on the internet, but there are facts. And one of the facts they
well, Mark, real quick, did you say it's ed.data.org?
No, ed-data.
Oh, ed-. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was just trying to.
And it's open access. Anybody can access the. I think you can sign up if you want to get notices of updates and stuff like that. But
Leon, can you bring up the visual real quick while Mark is talking? Because then we can just show this real quick. I think this is a great thing here. Okay.
Yeah, there it is. And it asks for what county. And so you can select any county, Sacramento County, and then what school district in Sacramento County, and it'll list them.
Okay.
It will list what, Mark, what exact information you'll be able to get from here?
Ethnic breakdown of students, meal programs, scholastics, financing. I mean, there's a wealth of information that's there. And one that I wanted to.
When you say scholastics, you mean like grades and graduation rates and stuff like that?
Yeah, so basically they categorize students in 4 categories, like exceeds requirements, meets requirements, slightly below requirements, and fails in requirements.
Okay.
So one of the things that I did was look at my own school district, the Morgan Hill Unified School District. And I don't remember the exact stats, but in Morgan Hill Unified School District, if you combine the failed to meet requirements and below requirements, over 50% of the students are behind grade level in English.
Right.
And here's the other shoe dropping. Over 60% are behind grade level in math.
Yes.
Yeah, this is one of the. Well, I was just going to say. Sorry. Go ahead.
say if you're growing up in Silicon Valley and you want to get a job at a high-tech company and 60% can't pass mustard in math, that is criminal.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. We had a show we did not too long ago where we talked about Philadelphia, and we pulled up the NAEPS, which is the National Education Assessment. I can't quite remember the whole acronym, but that's the national standard that they test everybody on in these comparisons. And one of the shocking things I found is that a lot of times they almost hide the ball by telling you how they did relatively from one year to the next. But that doesn't really tell you the story of how badly they're doing overall, right?
Exactly.
And I mean, when you go in there and you look at what the standards actually measure, it's almost criminal. I mean, it seems like nobody would pay for this if they knew exactly what it was they were getting. And the reason we brought up Philadelphia is because in our Knucklehead Noise Patrol, we had a mayor who couldn't spell Eagles in a chant. She said, "Give me an E, give me a G, give me an L." So,
hey, Jason, just remember, thank goodness we don't get all the government we pay for.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's true. No doubt.
That almost sounds like a quote we need to use at the beginning of one of these shows.
Yes.
Thank goodness you don't get all the government you pay for.
Yeah. By the way, I stole that quote fair and square. I don't know where I got it, but it's definitely not mine.
What's a good one?
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah. But this is the insane thing. So not only are they delivering a poor product, but they are using our own money to ask for more money. It's just in the paying for the election. Mark, is this the same throughout the state? The way when somebody puts a ballot measure on, or is this particular to Silicon Valley? When they put something on there.
This is all California election code. It's all standardized. There's various deadlines. Again, this is getting down into minutia. Typically what happens when a school district puts a measure on the ballot, there's like a Friday night 5 p.m. deadline to get it in to the county clerk or the registrar of voters. We have a whopping 2 days over the weekend and 2 days working days to submit the argument against. So literally they can spend years formulating, doing polling, figuring out what their budget is, how much they want to ask for bond measure or parcel tax, submit it on Friday, and then over the weekend, if we can gain access to the information of what their justification is, then we basically get about a total of 4 days to mount a argument, research the argument against, trying to line up supporters, and Tuesday afternoon at 5, that's the deadline. So we get 4 days to mount a campaign. So kind of stacked against us.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, Mark, one of the things you brought up early in the conversation, and I really wanted to pull on this thread because you said that it's free to write an opposition piece. And is that just in Silicon Valley, or is that anywhere throughout the state? Because
throughout the state.
Wow. So if you're watching and you're in a place where nobody is opposing all of these tax measures and everything, boy, he's just given us a real gem there. You need to get out there and write something if nobody else is.
Yeah. And again, because it's so difficult to run partisan candidates on the libertarian ticket, I think a lot of voters are saying, where are the libertarians going? And this is a way to have the local county organization endorse a no vote on a parcel tax or a bond measure. You can put 300 words in the opposition, and then there's a rebuttal to the opposition or the rebuttal to the argument in favor with 250 words. So you can put a local website, phone numbers, contact information, say the Libertarian Party endorses a no vote on these parcel taxes, and you can get the word out. And guess what? The taxpayers pay to advertise the fact that the Libertarian Party is active in Sacramento County.
Yes, that definitely seems like something worth pursuing. So, Yeah, yeah.
And
Yeah.
I am more than happy to share the arguments that I make. I typically make fairly generic arguments. Again, the cost of the bond measure, and I will basically liken it to a mortgage, and everybody understands a mortgage has to be paid back plus interest. So that's one argument I make.
Well, you
The
know,
other
it's as
one-
bad as I was just going to say, as bad as our education is getting, I'm not sure everybody realizes that anymore. I mean, if you look at where everything's going, but yeah, sorry, go ahead.
And I'll point out that if you look, again, this is something that's available at ed-data.org. You look at teacher salaries. Have teacher salaries gone down while the school academics have gone down? No, they've actually gone up.
Yeah.
And particularly in Silicon Valley, if you add salary and benefits, most of the teachers are making over $100,000 a year for working 10 months out of the year.
I know there's a very famous graph where you can see average teacher salary going up like that. It's going up. And if you look at test scores, it's going down, crossing line, going down like that. There's a very famous graph of that somewhere. I think teachers, and I mean, they're sure they're trying to work on whatever, but I think teachers are probably one of the few professions in America where the worse job you do, the better salary you get. So I think we need to do something about that one, quite frankly.
Yeah. Well, I think unfortunately this is endemic to most government things. I think that it's not easy to tie the metric to good performance, right? That's the biggest problem with government work. So, and most of these things, in case you don't know how these unions work, a lot of times you're just in a certain classification, and then a step within that classification, and unless you do something that they want to fire you for, they're going to pay everybody essentially the maximum they can every time, and it just keeps on ratcheting its way up until you max out at the top of the scale. So it's very little done. The only way they're really you're getting a merit bonus, you might say, is if you get promoted. I mean, that's really the only thing that's happening within government work. Otherwise, if you're that teacher, there's not really anything other than your own initiative. And quite frankly, because it's government, they're stepping on your initiative every step of the way. So it's yeah. And by the way, just as a shout out to, in about a week, we're going to have Larry Sand back on, and he's sort of our go-to guy in education. So he's going to take a shot at some of what's happened with getting rid of the Department of Education as well. But Mark, you started getting into your background with the Libertarian Party, and so I kind of wanted to open a little bit of that up as well. Now, we interviewed you about a year ago, and so if anybody wants to go in and find out how Mark became a Libertarian and some of his background with that, I urge you to go check out that show. But there's a few things going on right now. One, we have the state fair coming up, and the Libertarians are going to have a booth there. So before we lose our public access time here, I wanted you to talk about that. And Leon, I have a visual of last year's booth, so maybe you could bring that up as well, so we can just show that while we're talking. So, Mark, did you have any thoughts you want to know? We can't make a call to action during this time, but we can at least talk about the booth and the fact that the Libertarians will be there.
Yes, and in fact, we've actually been there, I think, 6 or 7 times over the last decade or so. I believe the second Gary Johnson presidential campaign, I think, was the first time we had a booth at the state fair. It was very successful, and the attendance, according to last year, was almost 700,000 people attended the state fair. And we have a booth that we're going to have in building/tent D as in dog. So, and I know it gets a little warm in the summer, and the fair, I think, is July 11th through the 27th, I think it is.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
um, and by the way, I have sat in that booth a few times, and it is in a nice air conditioned area. So don't worry about it if you come in there to chat with some libertarians, or if you even want to come and find out how you can help out at the booth. You're not going to be sweating it out with the people, out riding the roller coasters.
And the bathrooms are right around the corner.
Oh, okay.
in a good way, not like downtown. Wherever you go, the bathrooms are right around the corner. Yeah. So,
for we older guys, we got to know these things,
Yeah, but this is an excellent opportunity, though, to come and talk with people. I know, Mark, you've been there before. I've been there. James Just, our county chair, he most likely will be there some days. But it's a great opportunity to come in and just chat if you have questions about, obviously there's a lot of people who are upset with the two parties. I mean, the Democrat polls are in the toilet, and a lot of people have issues with Trump. So, come check out the Libertarian booth. We might surprise you. Mark, did you want to talk a little bit about some of the outreach at the booth?
Yeah, so you can obviously see we have plenty of brochures. We have voter registration cards, and one thing that is always a winner is the world's smallest political quiz, the one from the Advocates for Self-Government, and particularly a lot of teenage to young adult stop by the booth because they're disenfranchised by the Republicans and Democrats, and they're looking for alternatives. I suspect most people know the fastest growing political body are independents, and most Republicans and Democrats are losing voter registration. Nationwide, I think the Libertarian Party is close to 700,000 in registered voters. And of course, when I point that out, I also make note that a number of states like Texas, you actually can't register as a libertarian. You just vote up and vote in the various primaries. So not every state allows you to register as a libertarian or a Democrat or Republican or Green or whatever.
By the way, let me jump in real quick here. If you're watching on public access, we're going to talk a little bit about some goings on at the Libertarian Party, how you can get involved. Also, we're going to talk about grading Trump, so that's certainly worth hearing some of our thoughts on that, and some of these progressive fines that are going to be popping up here in California. So anyways, back to the show. So yeah, go ahead, Mark. Sorry, I had to cut you off there.
A couple of minor points I'd like to bring up about ballot measures against parcel taxes and bond measures. And again, I pointed out that bond measures are like a mortgage. You have to pay it back with interest. And one of the arguments that I frequently use, in fact, I've got two examples. Bond measures have to be spent on things. They cannot be funding salaries, right? That's the legal requirement. So if you own a home or a condo or whatever, and you have a leaky roof, typically you hire a contractor. Usually it comes with 10, 15, 20-year warranty. Not with school districts. I can't tell you the number of school districts that I've looked at that part of the bond money is supposed to go to fix leaky roofs. And I look back at their arguments for the last bond measure 5 or 6 years ago. Guess what? Leaky roofs. Apparently school roofs leak about every 5 to 10 years. Really?
Yeah.
And then here's another thing, particularly as you well know, technology has entered the classroom in spades. One of the things that school districts frequently put on the ballot measure is a justification for technology. Now you stop and think about that. You guys all have a computer because I'm looking at you via your computer.
Yes.
Did you take out a 30-year loan to pay for that computer? School district did.
Well, we get enough tariffs, we might be taking out. Yeah. But that's
So
crazy.
it's like, it is, because, again, the technology that they're buying today will probably be in the recycle bin in 5 or 6 years.
Yes,
And then, of course,
it's
they'll
true.
put out another bond measure to replace that. So it's just total insanity to pay for technology. For one thing, the technology is going to be cheaper in 5 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Indeed.
And it's
Yeah.
just, ridiculous.
Again, tariffs notwithstanding.
Yeah.
Right.
But, this is one of the sad things, though, is that, these one size fits all is part of the problem. I think, if we had, more of a school choice type of competitive market-based system, then you're more likely to get schools putting the money where they actually think it might do the best. Because, after all, what's going to cause people to come back to those schools is alumni output or alumni performance in the long run. And if people see that, those schools are making bad choices, then they're going to go away. So if the school really thinks it needs to invest in something technology oriented, it could. But this idea that, we have to do a contract and every kid has to have this type of laptop and all of them are substandard and top dollar. It's just, yeah.
Jason, you just reminded me of something else that I wanted to bring up. I mentioned earlier that most of these teachers are being paid about 100,000, give or take, 10,000 in salary. And if you look at that website, ed-data.org, you can actually see how much the school district is paying per student, and they'll tell you what's the ratio from teacher to student. So let's say the teacher is getting $100,000 a year, and there's 20 students. Look at what the district is actually spending, and typically it's $18,000 to $20,000. So if you do the math, most of the majority of the money does not reach the classroom. It does not get into the teacher's pocket. Where is it going? Well, there have been numerous surveys, and you can find them online, that shows the growth of the administration has skyrocketed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And how does that help students?
Yeah, we need to get Doge. We need to get Doge in their ass, quite frankly.
Yeah, every state needs its own Doge, I guess,
Yeah,
to look at some of these things. But the sad thing is, what we really need is a market in these things. You get a market and a lot of these things will start to correct themselves. At least the bad performers will disappear after a certain period of time. They won't go on forever the way we currently. This is just the sad thing, when we hear about some of these school districts, like, Baltimore being one of the most obscene that I've heard about. And the idea that you can have the statistical miracle of having, over 10 schools where not a single kid is math proficient. And that's just, by accident, you would think some kid would win the lottery and fill out his Scantron, with the right answers. And that's just absolutely absurd. The idea that not a single kid is math literate. It just, I don't know. You just think it's
in defense of Baltimore, they are not unique in that characteristic. Okay, honestly, it's a very sad and tragic thing to say, but it is also true.
Yeah, leading a pack of despair, I guess. But
yes.
Well, Mark, one of the other things I wanted to touch briefly on, because of your background with the Libertarian Party, is there's been a lot of upheaval in the party recently, and we kind of had a momentous, into this last election cycle where Donald Trump was even at the LNC or the Libertarian Party convention, and but since then the wheels seem to have fallen off the wagon a little bit. They recently sold their headquarters building, and it sounds like they might have done it at a loss too. And we also have a new chair as well. So Leanne, could you bring up the visual real quick? So McCardle left for a spot with RFK's. I heard she got a job over there under RFK somewhere, and so our new Libertarian Party chair is Stephen Nikila. So I haven't seen him yet, and we're trying to get him on the show. So hopefully he'll come on eventually, and we can talk with him. But yeah, they've had sort of a little bit of a scandal with some of that, and also too, this is an article called thirdpartywatch.com, but they talk about how they recently had to sell their headquarters building, and of the embarrassing facts, apparently a leaky roof was involved in all of this too, when we're just talking about leaky roofs. So I don't know, what can you tell us, Mark, about all of the happenings going on here?
Well, I have some uplifting, positive news in that regard. For one thing, I dialed into the Libertarian National Committee meeting, like a Zoom meeting, and they are looking into selling the building. As far as I know, they have not yet sold the building.
Oh, okay.
There was a group that basically wanted to sell it at a significant loss. I think we actually moved into the building in Alexandria, which is right across the lake from the DC. And I think we spent about $850,000 in 2014, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's 825. Yeah.
Yeah. And the rumor was that somebody was interested in developing the entire block and wanted to basically buy all the, I think there's like 5 units in the building, and we're one of them. And the idea was they wanted to lowball by paying $500 or $650,000. So that's $175,000 loss. And one question I brought up in the meeting is like, okay, you're trying to tell me in the last 11 years, the value of a building declined by $200,000 in the DC market? I don't believe it. I just don't believe it. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, real estate typically goes up, not down.
Yeah, and unless you're in the Market Street in San Francisco.
Exactly.
So,
yeah, exactly right. So,
or unless a major employer moves out of town.
Yeah,
right.
That does happen too. That does happen.
Yeah,
too.
but Tim, we haven't lost the major employer in DC. It's still the federal government. It's still there with all those lobbyists.
Yes. And a bunch of empty buildings which bureaucrats will not go to.
Yeah.
So anyhow, that's still up in the air as far as I know, that whether they're going to look into it, but and they're not going to just lowball it. They're going to hire a real estate agent, and I don't know if they're going to do staging or whatever. But they do need to repair a leaky roof, sadly. And again, that kind of brings up the fiduciary responsibility of the LNC, because this building has been vacant for 2 years. Why didn't they sublease it? That could have brought in 2 years of income. And I don't know what rental property goes for. I don't know, $3,000-$4,000 a month in the small business. It's I forget what the square footage is, but it's 3 stories tall, and it's probably maybe 3,000 square feet, something of that ball. So it's it's a smaller office, and all the neighbors I think are nonprofits. And, so we're not talking about, hundreds of thousands of square feet. We're talking about a relatively small footprint. And it's an asset. And one of the things that I think is likely, or no, that's not the right word. It's a fiduciary responsibility of the LNC to tend to your assets. And the roof was leaking. Apparently that got ignored. Some of the walls got mildew. And again, they just, it's a better part of $1 million asset, and they just ignored it. I'm
So
sorry.
Mark, so Mark, I mean, we hear all these things about the Libertarian Party. What do you see as the future of the Libertarian Party?
Glad you asked, Leon. So that the flip side of that is what's going on positively. So as you mentioned, Stephen Nikila, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name right, but I've spoken to him a couple of times, and I'm very happy with him. In fact, former National Chair Jeff Neal has also spoken to him. former National Chair Jim Turney from Florida has spoken to him. And they literally announced today that one of the major goals of the Libertarian Party nationally is to focus on fundraising and membership growth.
Okay.
As for people who are unaware, the Libertarian Party was taken over by the Mises Caucus in Reno in 2022. Since then, the Mises Caucus is pretty much disintegrated. As you say, Angela McArdle has left the LNC. The new chair, Stephen, is not Mises. The vice chair, Paul Darr, is not Mises. Bill Redpath, the treasurer, not Mises. And Caroline Harlow's not Mises. And I spoke before the LNC meeting, because typically they allow public comment. And I did that. And then I asked to speak at the end of the meeting. And the Mises folks tried to object, so saying, we don't want to listen to Mark Hinkle. He's the national chair. He doesn't have anything to value. The rest of the LNC overruled them and allowed me to speak.
Okay.
So it seems to me that the mighty Mises machine, which, by the way, was orchestrated by Michael Heist. I don't know if you've heard that name before.
We've heard him. I've actually tried to get him on the show too, but I just haven't had any luck getting him to come on to talk about what they've been doing.
Well, you probably won't have any luck now because basically he's left the employment of the National Party. So
okay.
he was the head of the chair of the Mises Caucus, which, as I understand it, was a paid position. Now, who funded that? There's lots of speculation on that. I don't know.
And by the way, one thing I did want to throw out there too, for anybody who's watching might be confused, the Mises Caucus and the Mises Institute are two different things. Now, I assume that people who aren't in the Mises Caucus, there's probably a fair amount of them who like Austrian economics, I guess, but it's not like it's a one-to-one. So just not to be confused.
Absolutely, very good. I'm delighted you said that. And in fact, even further to that point, there are a lot of people that I ran into in the Mises Caucus who are active in the Libertarian Party that I would very much like to stick around. It's the leadership that has just been extremely toxic. And they seem to be heading south for the winter. And I'm very hopeful. And the other thing I wanted to bring up is, for those who've been around, I'm trying to think of the time frame. Former National Director Perry Willis brought to the National Party something called Project Archimedes, where they did massive mailers, fundraising mailers and membership mailers, and virtually tripled the size of the Libertarian Party nationally to over 30,000 dues-paying members and a budget of over $3 million a year. He's been brought back on board to Project Archimedes 2. And I'm just thrilled as punch. This guy is very capable. And instead of direct mail, of course, we'll probably use a lot of social media and other venues to reach out to libertarians. But I think the Libertarian Party is going to come back. And I'm very happy to be part of that. And hope you guys are too.
Awesome. Yeah, no, it's certainly good to hear. And maybe when we get to the end of the show, we'll put something out there about how we can, people can reach out. But one of the things I did want to touch on, because we're starting to get long into the show here, but is Trump. Okay, so Trump was at the Libertarian Party convention, and he wound up winning the presidency for an extraordinary second term that was separated by a term with very I don't even want to try to remember that president, but
he's the second president of the United States who served non-consecutive terms.
Yeah. But anyway, so Trump has come back in, and this has been it's almost like a blitz. What's happened. I mean, a lot of people expected him to do some things, and it was kind of an interesting group of people that he had around him. And let me bring up here is an AP story that says Trump moves with light speed and brute force in shaking the core of what America has been. And I think that's probably a fair characterization of sort of what's happened. And kind of what I wanted to talk about here, because he's done a lot of things, but I kind of wanted to get a sense of what people's grades are for him, because I don't think we've really had anybody move this fast and do so many potentially big things that are happening. And so just to talk about what other people think, I guess there's been polls out, and the polls are changing almost as fast as he's acting. Some of the things that he's done, he was in the positive territory until about a day or two ago, and then I think it just went negative because of some of the tariff stuff. But this is just from a couple of days ago, and it's a story from the Independent that says, if Trump were to run against Obama just a few days ago, they think Trump would have beat Obama. And then here's a article then that comes out literally a day later, and it says Donald Trump's approval rating collapsed. So, and it has his approval dipping, I guess, under 50%. I guess starting to head the other direction. I guess it's actually starting to head into the low 40s. And then I think there was a Fox article, or somebody had an article out here. Gosh darn it, I think I might have misplaced. Oh, there it is. Where it talked about a Quinnipiac poll that says now his approval rating is down to 41%. So this is after some apparently wild activity. But just to give a real quick recap, I wanted to say some of the good, the bad, and the ugly to refresh people, because it's all happening so fast. It's easy to forget. And I've probably forgotten some of the things here too, so feel free to throw more in. Okay, but one of the big things, and I think we've already recently just kind of talked about this a little bit with the school bond stuff, but Trump is ordered the Department of Education to be dismantled. And in my opinion, that's one of the good things. I think that education should be farmed out, and we want to see this thing get to more school choice and more local control. This is more markets, I guess, in school is what I'm hoping for. And so that, to me, is a big positive. The Doge is kind of an interesting thing. He certainly got a lot of people talking about government waste, so that seems like a good thing. But one of the problems is, will it deliver on that government, cutting that government waste? And that's a big question mark. But it's still got people talking about government waste like I've never seen in my lifetime. Then we've got him firing lots of federal employees. So if you're a fan of reducing the size and scope of government, which I'm pretty sure a lot of libertarians are, firing a lot of federal employees is a big positive in that direction as well. And finally, on the good side, he has reduced this is from the White House, and he talks, it's his own numbers, so maybe we got to take them with a grain of salt here, but essentially he talks about how he has decreased from this time last year. He has decreased immigration by like 90-something%, essentially from over 100,000, I believe it was per day, to less than 10,000, or around 10,000 per day, I think it is, over that same period of time. So a massive reduction in border crossings. Now,
illegal border crossings.
Yeah, for libertarians, we kind of like migration as long as it's not being distorted by government. So that's kind of a tricky one. But then, he talked about cutting spending, and well, what do you know? We're spending more on the defense than we did before. So defense spending is going up. And now we're talking, there's a lot of rhetoric about potentially bombing Iran. I think there's some, negotiations going on right now, but this is kind of on the bad side of things. And then starts to get ugly. One of our heroes in the liberty movement who wears a Republican hat is Thomas Massie. And he has talked about trying to get Thomas Massie out, essentially primary him out of the party. Thomas Massie is one of the most stalwart guys out there on principle. So to me, this is extremely ugly. And then you've got Trump sending these prisoners or these migrants, illegal migrants, the gangbangers mostly, but to El Salvador prison. and without, as the Supreme Court just said, hey, you got to give him due process, and he was not giving him due process. So I think that's kind of one of the uglies that's come out here. And then, of course,
Jason, I don't think that's what the Supreme Court said, not quite frankly.
Well, they have said that he has to give the habeas corpus. That has to be done, which they weren't doing. So that, and they have a right to petition within the jurisdiction I think they were in, being held in. So which they didn't get. So now it's true they didn't make them bring those guys back, but they're saying those guys have a right in the future to do that. So he'll be defying the Supreme Court if he tries to send anybody else there. But then we have the tariff stuff, which is just insane. Certainly, in fact, we even have a little clip that I had pulled, and this is not, I guess, just to be clear to people, Donald Trump is, as much as people like to say he's being dishonest on a lot of things, some of these ideas he's had for a long time. And here is a video clip, a real quick one of him talking to Oprah back in, it was 1988, I believe. And he sounds almost exactly like he sounds today in talking about tariffs, which is part of the scary part, because as libertarians, we think a lot of those are bad ideas. So, Leon, can you play KOL 1?
You've said, though, that if you did run for president, you believe you'd win.
Well, I don't know. I think I'd win. I tell you what, I wouldn't go in to lose. I've never gone in to lose in my life. And if I did decide to do it, I think I'd be inclined. I would say that I would have a hell of a chance of winning, because I think people, I don't know how your audience feels, but I think people are tired of seeing the United States ripped off. And I can't promise you everything, but I can tell you one thing. This country would make one hell of a lot of money from those people that for 25 years have taken advantage. It wouldn't be the way it's been, believe me.
Okay, well, now play KOL 2, because I think I got the order mixed up, but they're both very similar, and the other one, he talks specifically about tariffs.
You took out a full-page ad in major U.S. newspapers last year criticizing U.S. foreign policy. What would you do differently, Donald?
I'd make our allies, forgetting about the enemies you can't talk to so easily, I'd make our allies pay their fair share. We're a debtor nation. Something's going to happen over the next number of years with this country, because you can't keep going on losing $200 billion, and yet we let Japan come in and dump everything right into our markets and everything. It's not free trade. If you ever go to Japan right now and try to sell something, forget about it, Oprah. Just forget about it. It's almost impossible. They don't have laws against it. They just make it impossible. They come over here, they sell their cars, their VCRs, they knock the hell out of our companies. And hey, I have tremendous respect for the Japanese people. I mean, you can respect somebody that's beating the hell out of you, but they are beating the hell out of this country.
So there you have it, and he's enacting, I guess, some of his ideas on trade, and boom, we saw this huge drop in the market. But things have kind of rebounded on some of the talk where he's not going to. I guess he's backing away from some of the tariffs, not against China now, but it seems to be a day-by-day change. We don't really know, I guess, where some of this stuff is going. But anyways, this is kind of, I guess, really crazy stuff. But one of the crazy things, too, is the fact that, he's talking about some of these numbers, and they're not, he's saying that these are he came out in his talk. I think there was a image somewhere with him holding these charts. Oh, darn it, it's not in this article. And he was comparing the different countries against each other and saying these are the trade tariff differences between the countries. And what he's really done is he's talking about trade deficits. So, I mean, it's kind of a mess. I mean, it's not even clear what he's talking about in a lot of this stuff. And to have a trade deficit with the world is not a great thing. I mean, you kind of want there to be a balance, but with individual countries, there absolutely should be trade deficits. I mean, there's going to be some countries that get more from us than we get from them. And there's going to be some countries that, we buy more from than what we wind up selling them. So, some of this stuff is kind of nuts, but in the end, it's just a lot. And there's all kinds of other things. I'm sure, you could probably talk about Palestine and Ukraine. There's all kinds of things here that are still up in the air. What do you guys think about it? I mean, if you guys had to give them a grade, what would you give them? And what would be the main criteria? What's the big thing that you're really looking at here?
How many hours do you want to spend talking about these various things? I mean, we're here at 54 minutes. Each and every one of these things, I could talk about for 30 minutes each. I
Well,
mean,
yeah, no,
you got about
Tim.
6 or
That's
7.
why I brushed through them all real quick. So but yeah, just tell me which one's the most important to
Just,
you.
Okay.
just paraphrase it, Tim. Come on, paraphrase it. Come on.
Okay. A grade then of C minus. Okay, there you are. Done. Okay, next.
No, I didn't say to speak
Seriously.
one word or 2 words. Okay.
Well, I mean, you don't get me going. Don't get me started. I mean, it's just there's not enough time in the night. I mean, let's go till midnight. Seriously. Pick it. Okay, or pick one topic, and I'll say as minimal amount as I possibly can, and get my point across. Just pick one.
Well, what's the most important to you? What's the most important to you, Tim?
Yes.
Of all the things he's been doing. That's why I actually sent it to you earlier today.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I missed it. What's the most important of all those things that you talked about? And to me, well, I think probably, I mean, there's a lot of important stuff. It's not like I'm trivializing anything, but probably for me, it's that, he promised to get us out of wars and cut back on military spending. And now he's talking about upping this military spending to $1 trillion a year in a country buried in debt. And he thinks the tariffs are going to pay for this or something. I don't know what he's thinking, because, he's the tariff thing. He's got 3 different things that he's trying to accomplish, and you can only do one, because one of us, you're going to keep tariffs forever, or the other one is you're going to get rid of tariffs after they do X or Y. So you pick one, because you cannot do both. You cannot keep tariffs going at the same time you stop them. Okay, so how's he going to pay for the $1 trillion in military expenditures? And he's talking about war with Iran. He's already bombed Yemen after criticizing his predecessor for doing the exact same thing. He received the 3rd largest campaign donor was Miriam Adelson, who is just, and notice when he's talking about $1 trillion, who's standing next to him? Netanyahu. Okay, so this guy is not going to go. He's not going to retract on military spending and feeding the never satisfied military industrial complex. He's going to double and triple down on it. Okay, so we're going to look for more warfare, and if you're a libertarian, you're against that. Number one, especially these kind of stupid, idiotic wars that he's already, upping here and just talking. And he's going to take over Greenland. And he's going to make Canada a state. I mean, what's this guy eating? Okay, so and
you gave him a C minus.
Yeah, C minus. Okay, yeah, yeah. C minus. Anyway, that's it. Military, war, and that's the main thing right there.
Okay, one correction. Trump did not promise to cut military spending, okay? He did promise to end the wars, I agree. He promised to, but what he promised on the campaign trail was to rebuild the military, which obviously would have increased military spending. Okay, that's the only correction.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, but I will concede that you're probably right. He did not say he was going to cut spending. But if you pull us out of the costly wars all over the globe and bring back some of the 750 military bases and close them down, you're going to free up a lot of money to spend repairing the Ospreys that fly in and out of the airport that I go to every single day. Okay, you're gonna be able to repair them. You're going to be able to repair the helicopters that I see every single day. Okay, so you're going to have more money to rebuild if you spend less money on invasions and occupations all over the globe. So,
all right,
so there you go.
All right.
Okay. So, Leon, what is your grade and what do you?
Yes, I think you meant 250 instead of 750. But Mark, please go ahead.
Okay. Mark, I guess it's to you.
One of the when you were going through the litany of things that Trump has done, one of the phrases that came to mind was, "May we live in interesting times."
Yeah,
and we do live in interesting times. And like Tim, I C minus was kind of what I was judging Trump on. One thing I'd like to encourage people to do is do a search on YouTube. Milton Friedman had a nice little analogy about three guys out in a boat. One guy takes out a gun and shoots a hole in the bottom of the boat.
Actually, you know
the
what?
Other two guys,
we can show that. I did have it, and I wasn't going to show it, but it's only like 30 seconds. Leon, play KOL 3.
KOL 3. Here we go.
President Reagan put this very well once in a speech he gave in San Francisco, in which he said, you know, let's suppose three of us are out in a boat in the ocean. And one of the fellows in there takes out a gun and shoots holes in the bottom of the boat. Is it the sensible thing for the others of us to do, to take out our guns and shoot more holes in the bottom of the boat? That's kind of a silly notion, isn't it? But yet that is exactly the notion of protection and retaliation. Suppose Japan and Europe do, and they do, no question, impose protectionist tariffs. That hurts them, it hurts us. If we turn around and impose protectionist tariffs on them in retaliation, all we do is to hurt ourselves some more and to hurt them some more. That we're just shooting additional holes in the bottom of the boat. It doesn't make any sense.
Okay. So there you go, Mark. Back to you.
all right, that's excellent, excellent. One quick topic I'd like to discuss is the immigration issue. And one thing that I virtually never hear in the media is people say, hey, people should come here legally. I did a Google search on what it would take for somebody in France, you know, an ally of the United States, to come here legally. And the response was about 2 years. Now, a lot of people who come here on H-1B visas are engineers, you know, computer scientists, smart people who have gone to college and overseas. Why would we want to limit the number of people who come here to start up businesses? I don't know if you guys are aware, but here in Silicon Valley, over 50% of the CEOs of tech companies are foreign-born.
Yeah.
Why would we want to drive those people to go overseas?
And to your point, when we see that brain drain going the other direction, that we're probably in real trouble at that point. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because that is a brain drain that we're sucking away from the rest of the world when those smart people come here to do their business. Yeah.
Okay. So, Mark, you're done?
One last quick question. You guys, let's see, neighboring county is like El Dorado County, is that right?
Yeah, it's Placer, El Dorado.
Placer,
yeah.
let's say, okay.
Yeah.
So, Jason, do you know what the trade deficit is between Placer County and Sacramento County is? You don't, do you?
No.
You care.
No.
Nobody cares.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I have, the TV and the screen I'm looking at was made in Japan. I sent digital currency over to Japan and I got a computer monitor in response. Why would I want to change that ever, ever, ever?
Yeah.
Okay. So I am going to give Donald Trump a B plus. Okay. And I'll tell you why. One of the most important things I think Donald Trump have done is to stop, well, not totally stop, but certainly have cut down the amount of illegal border crossings that have happened. And I think we make a big mistake when we start conflating people who could get up in some foreign country and think they could, I'm an immigrant too, okay, by the way, and think they could just walk across our borders and then demand rights here in the United States, for one thing. Okay, I don't want that conflation. All right, I have nothing against legal immigration, nothing at all. I wish we'll have more of that, but we cannot allow people to just cross our borders and then come here and say, oh, they could have rights. Their children have to be educated. They want welfare. They want this. They want that, and they want every damn thing under the sun. No, thank you. All right, go back to where you came from if you're here illegally. Period. Now, Trump have done something about that, which the Biden administration had allowed this invasion upon our sovereignty. It is our sovereignty, nobody else's. Okay, they cannot do this. Okay, number one. So I'm going to give Trump a B plus for that. Secondly, the other thing that I think he's trying to do, I don't think I could call it a success as yet. He's trying to do something about the economy. Okay, He's trying to fix inflation. He's trying to get the economy moving through tax cuts. He has a bill that is going through Congress right now. It's looking, well, it got through the Senate, but the House of Representatives looking like a little more challenge. Okay, you're talking about Thomas Massey. He's part of Trump's quote-unquote problem. Okay, I'm going to leave it like that and stuff. But I'll give Trump a B plus for that. Obviously, there are some things he have done that I don't like. This tariff business concerns me because I don't believe the government should be telling me who I should or should not be buying. Taking my hard-earned money, and they want to tell me who or what country I should spend that money on. So I have a little problem with tariffs. Philosophically, I have a problem with tariffs. And however, Trump has a little strategy trying to open up markets, blah, blah, blah. I don't know if that's the job of the government, but I'll give him a B plus.
Yeah. Well, as far as I'm concerned on my particular grade, I was thinking the B range at first when I was first thinking about getting rid of the Department of Education, because in my opinion, that is the most important thing. If we want people to have more liberty ideas in the long run, we've got to shut off the spigot of bad ideas coming from a government monopoly on education. I mean, it's just like we're constantly fighting against the ideas that we're putting into all these kids as they're growing up in government schools, where it tells them government is the solution to all the problems. So now what Trump is doing there, he doesn't have the power to do it all himself, but at least he's gone farther than any other president has gone. But that said, I think that's great. But then I start seeing some of the other stuff he's done, and I just want to tear my hair out on some of these things. So I kind of slip back into the C range for him. But all that said, I mean, when I look at all the other presidents, and I don't know that I'd go over a D on any of them. I mean, Reagan had some great ideas, but aside from kicking inflation in the butt, he really, he kind of allowed the military-industrial complex to grow, and a lot of other things happen too. So, I don't know. And of course, Biden, I mean, oh my gosh, I just want to forget about it. So,
Biden was a corpse running around the office. We know that. Okay.
Sure. But I think that to me is just absolutely the most important issue, that Department of Education, because long term, I mean, granted, we've got a lot of short term problems, but long term, if we ever want to, get things going in the right direction, we've got to get the government out of delivering education to kids. Yes. So those are my thoughts on it. I think we're going to have to jettison the whole progressive fines issue, but let's hit the wrap up with the Knucklehead Noise Patrol. We have a short little thing that I think is kind of funny. This is something that gosh, who was it here now? I guess he fancies himself to be a law expert or some kind of legal professional. His name is Elie Mystal, and he wrote a book that's called Bad Law, which, that would sound great to a lot of libertarians, but then I hear what his idea of bad law is, and it starts to get a little bit corrupt. So he was on The View recently, and he said, maybe you could show this the visual real quick before we go to the video, Leon. So he said that every law made before 1965 should be unconstitutional. And let's show him saying that in his own words. Can you play the clip, Leon, KNP1?
Best-selling author and justice correspondent for The Nation, Elie Mystal, is telling us why they all made the list in his new book, Bad Law, 10 popular laws that are ruining America.
Yes, absolutely. One of my premises for the book is that every law passed before the 1965 Voting Rights Act should be presumptively unconstitutional, right? Because before the 1965 Voting Rights Act, we were functionally an apartheid country.
And so I kind of like the fact that, that there's some issues, with some of the laws that were going on there, Jim Crow and all these other things. But the Constitution is also before 1965, so how can they all be unconstitutional? anyways, I just think that's absolutely nuts. I mean, he said that any law passed before then is unconstitutional, and yet the Constitution is before 1965. What do you guys think of Ellie's rant?
Well, the Constitution is the supreme law of the land. If this fool didn't know that, so I guess he said the Constitution is unconstitutional. This is such an idiotic statement for any serious person to make. So we should just throw that in the garbage bin of nonsensical things said on national TV.
Well, so in 1965, prior to that, women could not vote. Is that what he's saying?
No, that's the Voting Rights Act was for
women
civil
were
rights.
voting in 1965, bro.
Yeah. This is for issues like the what do you call it? Ending Jim Crow, that kind of a thing.
Jim Crow, yes, the Jim Crow stuff. The Voting Rights Act came in, I believe, in 1964, 65? It might be 65.
There were two laws. One came in 64 and the other came in 65, I think. So, but yeah, essentially that was what broke the back, I believe, of all the Jim Crow stuff. So
yeah.
Okay. Well, I think I see the point he's trying to make is that laws, not the supreme law of the land, but laws, that people live under in general are, maybe he thinks that they're not constitutional because they were not voted on by women and minorities. Is that his point? But I thought
women were voting in 1965. Women were voting since 1928 or something like that.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I thought. And what about in blacks? Blacks or minorities? No minority could vote until 65.
No. Let's be clear about that, okay? Minorities in the South could not vote.
Only in the South. Okay.
Yeah, in the South could not vote.
Okay. So maybe he should say that Southern laws prior to 1965 are not valid or something like that. But I mean, if somebody can vote somewhere, and everybody can vote, then everybody's had a say in it, right?
And to be fair, I think they could vote in Jim Crow. It's just that they had all these screwed up rules for everybody, and they could suppress people's rights and everything else. So
they had the grandfather clause and all that kind of stuff and things like that. Yes.
Yeah.
But that was only in the South. Not to minimize it, but that was only in the South.
Okay, so I'm trying to play devil's advocate here, and I also know that we live in a constitutional republic, and that we elect representatives that represent us, and so I know we're not voting directly on these laws unless they're special cases, but so I'm just understand that's where I'm coming from, but no, I mean, maybe if he said in the South, maybe he'd have an argument. And then, okay, we could talk about that. But if he's making a blanket statement, then that's crazy.
Jason, I've got three laws that were passed prior to 65 that I think, should be repealed. Marriage licensing laws that prevents white from marrying blacks. Zoning laws that restrict blacks from living in white neighborhoods. And minimum wage laws. All of those are racist.
Yeah.
Let's get
gun control.
And some gun control laws.
Mark?
Totally agree. But this idiot said all laws before 1965. Okay, but I agree, Mark, I agree with you that those laws that you just laid out there, totally agree. Some of them are off the books now, but the minimum wage is not. But I think you are right that there are certain laws that are on the books that should be removed and removed immediately. But to say all laws between 65 are unconstitutional, that's a statement of an idiot.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah, and this is the thing that I guess screams about what's going on before 1965. If people were just a little more libertarian and all these things, I think we wouldn't have these problems. I mean, a lot of this is just live and let live, and let's not have the government micromanage your preferences. And unfortunately, that's Jim Crow right there. I mean, the government's coming in trying to micromanage everybody's preferences. So yeah, it feels to me like the solutions are here. Boy, we just got to get that libertarian message out there.
Well, guys, if you think about it, does government actually have an incentive to solve problems? Because if you solve the problem, we don't need government, right?
Right, we don't need the bureaucracy. We don't. You're absolutely right.
Their incentive is to perpetuate the problem or make it worse.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if I can leave you with one quote that I just love, there's no government like no government.
Good. Yes. Well, before I leave the show, I did want to give you a chance to tell people how they can get involved with it. And Leon, maybe you could bring back up the visual again, but we've got the Silicon Valley Taxpayers Association, and we also have the Libertarian Party's booth at the State Fair. So did you want to give any last shout outs on any of that stuff for people and how they can get involved?
Yeah, if you'd like to serve as a volunteer, we'll basically pay for a ticket. We'll call ticket to get you into the state fair. You do your 40 hours of duty to the party and the liberty, and then you can roll around the state fair and take in all the food and entertainment that's there. And if you just contact me, my email address is very simple. It's Mark, M-A-R-K, @garlic, GARLIC.com.
Oh, wow.
Awesome.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And I can tell you all, it's a lot of fun. You know, I've enjoyed doing it, and it gives you a chance to talk with people who are just curious about liberty ideas. And it's a chance for you to maybe even get some people to change their mind on some things. So it's a really fun thing. And you get to talk to a few other libertarians who are sitting around the booth as well, which is always fun. Oh, yeah. So anyways, I can't think of anything else. So go check out Silicon Valley Taxpayers Association as well to see what they're up to. And do think about writing those arguments against in the ballots in your area, because, boy, that's a gem, Mark, that you shared with us on the show. So I'm definitely going to think about that as well. So thanks so much. And until next time, stay tuned and stay free.
Oh, yes, indeed.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, always and forever.
Thank you for listening to the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast. Find us on Facebook, Rumble, YouTube, your favorite podcast network, and at knuckleheadsofliberty.com.